Hey guys, welcome back to Wix Fix. I hope you're having a fantastic day. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you all about the grid inside of Editor X. If you have not seen the tutorial that covers the basics of Editor X, I really suggest you go watch that before this video. So if you're interested in learning more about the Editor X basics, a link will be in the description below. The closest thing in the classic editor that I can compare Editor X's grids to is when we actually split strips inside of the classic editor. So basically, when we split a strip inside the classic editor, we're basically creating columns that we can put more content into. And that is pretty similar to how the grid works inside of Editor X. However, they're a lot more complex. So let me show you. So here we have a normal section inside of Editor X. If we click it, you're going to see an option to apply a grid. This little box will pop up and then it'll ask you what kind of grid that you want to apply to this section. Or you can create a custom one with a certain amount of columns and a certain amount of rows. For this example, we'll use the 2x1 layout and we'll press apply. The first thing you're going to notice is that there is a line right down the middle. This is a guideline to show us that we can put content over here on the left and content over here on the right. But unlike the classic editor, we can put content here as well if we wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and press right click, go to quick add, and I'm going to add an image. Now, if I leave this image over here and I stretch this image, you're going to see it's going to take up this column. And then if I pull it over to the left side and press stretch, it's going to take up the left column. However, if I drag this image over this line, so it's basically covering both sections, then I press stretch, it's going to cover both columns. Then if we come down here to add a section, we're going to see that there is an option to add a grid right away. So let's go ahead and do that. And it's going to ask us what kind of grid that we want. Let's do 3x1 for this one. And now you're going to see there's 3 columns. And when I hover over one of the guidelines, you can see that it kind of highlights and your mouse kind of changes, signaling that we can actually move the grid however we want. If you want more control over the size of your grid, you can actually come over to adjust grid, edit grid, and then you'll be able to see all of these different options. So if we click right here on this little 2-line thing and we drag, it'll do the similar thing where we can resize it. Also, right next to that is a little add column button, and that's going to be on the right side of each column. So you can just press the plus icon to add another column. And same thing for the rows. So if we go down to the row, we can add a second row. As you can see, the rows are completely different sizes compared to the columns, which are all evenly dispersed across the whole width of your website. And that's because rows are actually pixel based and columns are fraction based. So basically each column is divided into fractions and rows are by default set to pixels. Of course, you can always change that by coming over here and pressing fraction. And then we can set this to a fraction as well. And then we can change the number to 1, just like that. And now you can see that the rows are even and the columns are even. The reason that rows are by default set to pixels is because when making stuff responsive, it can be a little bit harder to control the height of your rows. However, if you just have like a set pixel, then it's a little bit easier to control the responsiveness of your website. And before I close out of this, I just want to note that down here, we can actually set our gaps as well. So let's say we want like 20 pixels of gaps for our columns and our rows. And you can see that it creates a gap between our rows and columns. And the cool thing about this is you can actually create custom stuff, unlike the classic editor where the gaps are all uniform. Here we can create our own custom gaps. The next thing I want to show you, if we add, let's just say a normal grid, let's just do 2x1 for this one. And then let's go up to add, we'll go up to quick add, and let's just drag out a container. I'll be making a video about containers in the near future, but for this example, let's just go ahead and press stretch. And you're going to see it's going to take up the left column. But the cool thing about containers is we can actually apply a grid to the container. Let's just do a 2x1 for this one. So we can actually add grids inside of grids. And just for fun, let's go ahead and do it again. And for this one, we'll do 1x3. So now you can see that this section is split into 2. This left column is split into 2. And then this right column on the left column It's split into 3 rows. And you can actually add as many grids within other grids as you want. So I did create a little bit of an example website to show you what all you can do with the grid. So as you can see up here, here is 2 columns, 1 row, and over here is the image. This right here is actually 1 section. The top half is split into 2. The bottom half is split into 2 as well. And then over here on the left side, I added 3 columns, and then I added a container on the right 2 columns for this grid right here. So this kind of gives you a general idea of the stuff that you can do with the grid inside of Editor X. In the future, I'm going to be making a web design video with Editor X using grids, layouters, stacks, containers, and everything else inside of Editor X. So if you're interested in seeing that, be sure to press that like button and subscribe to the channel for more Editor X content coming real soon. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you on the next one.